Hey everybody, it's Party Elite. Welcome back to our Wetlands Pack DLC showcase for Planet Zoo. Yes, it's been a minute between this episode and the last one, and for that I do apologize, and I do thank you for your patience as always. There are a couple of reasons for this delay. One is just the chaos of life right now. If you're interested in more details on that front, you can follow me on Twitter. I, in fact, tweeted just earlier today about what's been going on. So if you're curious as to that whole aspect of things, you'll find it on my Twitter. But more directly relevant to the game itself, one of the bigger reasons I would say for this delay is just how ridiculously challenging it's been to find a cultural touchpoint for today's animal, the Nile Lechwe. Now, yes, I guess I could have just forgone that prerequisite of mine. It is entirely my doing. I could have just said, no, we're not going to do it this time. But I guess I was feeling a little stubborn, especially because I was feeling very curious. How could it be that this animal had, no cultural touch points? It took me a long time to find anything. And when I say cultural touch point, I mean something significant, right? I don't just mean oh yeah, these people hunt this animal, or oh yeah, this animal and these people cohabitate, or something like that. No, I'm talking about folklore, cultural imagery, I'm talking about symbolism, I'm talking about political importance, that kind of stuff, right? And it took me forever to find something, but I finally did, and I'm really excited to talk about it because the people I'm discussing today are very unfamiliar to me. So I had to spend a lot of time, researching and figuring out what I'm talking about to make sure I'm talking about it at least somewhat correctly, right? I try to avoid misinformation as best as I can, so it took a long time, and then I obviously got the news of the, as we've all seen by now, I'm sure, the new DLC that's coming, and that really told me I need to kick it up a notch, and these last couple of nights have been very, very interesting late nights, spending time researching a group of people I didn't even know existed until I was, looking into the Nile Lechwe, so that's been interesting. But with that said, let's get into it because there is a lot to talk about. We are speaking today of the Shilluk people, and perhaps more specifically, the Shilluk Kingdom. The kingdom is where the touch point actually comes from, and I don't know if the kingdom and the people can really be separated. Based on my research, at least, it feels as though they are all within that one hierarchy, let's call it. But the Shilluk Kingdom and the Shilluk people are from South Sudan and Southern Sudan. I believe largely South Sudan and maybe little bits of Southern Sudan, but that's roughly where they're located and where they have been located since about the second half of the 15th century, or perhaps the early 16th century, when the Shilluk Kingdom was founded by Nikang, a legendary king who was half crocodile and had control over the rain. So he's described as semi-legendary, and I assume that means he is a real person, but he wasn't actually half crocodile, and he didn't actually have control over the rain, but those were, embellishments to make him larger than life because of what he was able to accomplish in founding this kingdom. The name, by the way, might be familiar to some of you because it's also the name of a character in My Hero Academia, apparently, which is rather interesting. But yeah, so the king founds the Shilluk Kingdom sometime between, the second half of the 15th century and the early 16th century, and since then, the king has held a very important position and role. Not like any old king. Kings are always important in kingdoms, yes, but here the king is sort of the embodiment of the kingdom's spirit. It's a very sacred king. And there is a king today as well. The latest king of the Shilluk Kingdom was coronated in 1993, but he's not really a king of an independent entity anymore. The Shilluk Kingdom is no longer an independent political entity. Instead, the king acts as a representative, if I understand it correctly, for the Shilluk people to the governments of Sudan and South Sudan. So they're still very much an entity, but not an independent kingdom like they used to be, with a very fascinating and rich history that is completely new to me. But that's beyond the scope of today's conversation. Anyway, so the king is very important. And of course, with kings, there comes succession, and with succession, there tends to be a coronation. And that is where you'll find our touch point, because during the coronation of a new king, there are a bunch of prerequisites and requirements, including, for example, the king-to-be can't have any scars, which is rather interesting because scarification practices are a thing among the Shilluk people. Raised bumps across the forehead is what I've seen in my research. Those are rather common, body modifications among the Shilluk people. But the king-to-be isn't supposed to be scarred. Now, I don't know if scarification counts as scars because it's intentional, or if it means like battle scars or whatnot. But either way, no scars. And they're not allowed to be a coward, as determined by their mentor figure, which is, I thought, rather interesting. But yeah, there are a couple of prerequisites, and when the time comes to actually become king, there's a lot of like regalia. There's a lot of paraphernalia involved, and among all that is the skin of a Nile Lechwe, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is our cultural touchpoint. And it was like literally a throwaway sentence in this one article I was reading, but it gave me what I needed for me to go research the Shilluk kingdom, the Shilluk people, look up their architectural styles, and there isn't a lot out there. There are a couple of videos out there of a few ceremonies and celebrations and dances and things like that. So I got a lot of insight into clothing and beading and all that kind of cool stuff. And there's a lot of reading too for the history and stuff. But as far as imagery is concerned, like photography, there is very little. But I tried to create what I could from that inspiration. I tried to create this like fencing you're about to see over here. I end up building like a little fence around our central hut, and the hut is supposed to look like semi-complete. It looks like their construction is usually like logs, and then like mud and clay are added to the sides. They're a semi-nomadic people, and this seems to be their temporary, or I guess semi-temporary housing structures and stuff, and they tend to have like fencing around their houses, and they're very like cattle-focused people. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a matter of keeping the cattle out, or perhaps keeping them penned in or controlled in some way or another. But yeah, I was only able to find so much, and hopefully it's come across nicely. I don't actually have much time left in the time lapse, but the Shilluk Kingdom is a fascinating thing to look up if you're curious for more information yourself. A lot of the visuals are, of course, kind of expected, I suppose, but it's interesting to see it match up almost one-to-one. But with that said, folks, back to regular speed. Alright folks, we are back from the time lapse, back to Planet Zoo, adding a brand new animal that I've never even heard of before, learning about a brand new people as far as I'm concerned, because I'd never heard about them before either, and obviously they're not actually brand new. They've got a quite rich history that hopefully the time lapse today tapped into, and hopefully I was able to clearly communicate why I decided to sort of explore them for this space. It took a long time to find a relative cultural touch point. It was actually more challenging than I would have expected, but I'm definitely glad we came across one. I'm definitely glad I found one. I'm definitely glad I was able to find, certain motifs that I was able to pull in, but I'm sure I talked about all that during the time lapse, so I will not repeat myself or belabor all my excitement in having found an actual touch point that we could explore. Now, I do apologize again for the delay between this episode and the previous one. Part of it was because of the research I had to do and just how challenging it was to find answers to the questions that I was asking, to find, again, reference points. But the other part of it is just a matter of things have been a little chaotic, not in like a terrible way or anything like that, nothing to worry about there, but this year as a whole has just been a little sprinklings of chaos here and there for my life. If you follow me on Twitter, I've talked about all that kind of stuff at length. Nothing major or nothing to be worried about, but it has been it's been an interesting year in many ways. In many ways. But of course the new DLC got announced, and I wanted to make sure that we completed our adventures with this DLC before that new DLC releases, and then we're diving into the new DLC pack because I do want to explore it. It seems rather interesting with some of the additions that are coming through, and then these poor European animals, they're being delayed once again, because the initial plan, of course, was to finish this DLC pack off, the Wetlands Pack animals, and then go back to the European pack, and then add the European animals over here. But again, just unfortunately hasn't worked out that way, but it's all right. We'll get back to those European animals after we're done with this newly announced DLC. When it eventually, falls in my hands, I'll be diving into that. I do think, before I actually start adding our animal and stuff really quickly, bear with me here, but I do think we need to actually move on from this zoo. I think we'll be adding that new, the one last remaining Wetlands Pack animal over here or so. And then for the new DLC, I might actually need to kick off a new zoo, because the frame rates have been a little, poor lately. Anytime I'm terraforming, I'll get a bit of lag, and when we hit play, the frame rate really drops, and that's because there are just so many parts and just pieces, like construction pieces and stuff at the zoo already. So we're kind of reaching the tipping point, and I think what's going to happen is we're going to add the final animal for the Wetlands Pack DLC. Then we'll go on to the new DLC with a brand new zoo, starting with absolutely nothing, a vast empty expanse, and then we'll come back and still put the European pack animals over here, because then we can at least fill out this side of the zoo a little bit, and we'll call it a day then. If you feel otherwise, if you feel differently, if you feel strongly one way or another, let me know in the comments down below. And again, folks, if you've been enjoying Planet Zoo and you would like to see it continue, you'd like to see me cover the new DLC and all that, please don't hesitate to keep letting me know. Leave those likes and comments down below. They do make a very big difference, especially after these long breaks. I know it's been a slower burn this year, and I do apologize for that genuinely from the bottom of my heart, and I really appreciate the patience. It means a lot. Words can't express how much the patience means. So thank you so very much for that. And if you are still having a good time and you would still like to see all this continue, those likes, those comments, they really communicate very clearly to me, and they help me organize and figure out how I'm going to approach things when push comes to shove. So again, I appreciate the patience. I appreciate the support as well. It means a tremendous deal. With that said, let's go ahead and actually get into it, right? Let's add our new animal today, the Nile Lechwe. So I looked it up because I was like, how do you pronounce that? So it's either pronounced Lechwe or Lechwe. Apparently both are acceptable. Lechwe comes more naturally to me when I read that word, and I could still be butchering it, but that's what I'll be going with. This might be one of the few cases where the scientific name is easier to say than, or more intuitive than the the common name or whatever the term is. Either way, the Nile Lechwe, the Cobus megaceros, is an endangered species, one that again I'd never heard of before. So time to learn about something completely new as far as my own knowledge is concerned. Population in wild is approximately 4,300, which is pitiful, of course. And let's dive in. The Nile Lechwe, or Cobus megaceros, is a species of ungulate. Is it ungulate or ungulate? Ungulate? English, man. Letters all make different sounds depending on just how they're laid out. These are hoofed animals, right? Native to the marshes and swamps of South Sudan and Ethiopia. They exhibit a high level of sexual dimorphism. Male Nile Lechwes are larger than females, with a length of 5.3 feet to 6 feet, shoulder height of 3.3 feet to 3.5 feet, and weight of 198 pounds to 264 pounds. They have long ridged horns, and their coat is of a dark brown color with white markings on the shoulders, face, and legs. The male's neck is covered with longer bushy hairs, and conversely, female Nile Lechwes do not have horns and have a much lighter tan-colored coat. Females measure 4.3 feet to 5.6 feet in length, stand 2.6 feet to 2.8 feet tall at the shoulder, and weigh between 132 pounds and 198 pounds. Those are, right, yeah, quite significant differences, and we can kind of see it here. It's a good image they've used to make that difference very apparent right off the bat. If I just saw the head of the female Lechwe, I would almost think it's almost, and I'm stretching here, but it's almost bovine. Do you see it? You kind of see it like a baby cow. Again, bit of a stretch, but when I see that, that's the first thing that comes to my mind based on animals I'm a lot more familiar with, I suppose. Whereas this, very much not that. Of course, especially with the added horns, which are gorgeous, by the way. Beautiful shape and stuff. By the way, Nile Lechwes are found in only 2 relatively small and fragmented areas and are considered an endangered species. It proves difficult to enact protection efforts as they live in areas of civil and political instability. As such, hunting and habitat fragmentation continue to threaten the species despite their protection status. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, oh hey, you know what? Good on good on the game to say South Sudan. While I was reading it, it just came so like naturally to me. But it didn't like register in my head that they did in fact, yes, of course, right, correctly use the term South Sudan. I was gonna say it's like, yeah, if I'm not mistaken, they're largely concentrated in South Sudan, and that just made me go back and check. So yes, of course they did that, but it's just nice to see it be done still. There's a lot of little details like this, a lot of games don't pay attention to, and it's nice when games do pay attention to this kind of stuff because it is important. And kudos, you know, I gotta give kudos. I gotta give kudos. Natural habitat, there you go. It's like nothing. And it's a very harsh nothing as well in all senses of the word. Looks like they are aquatic and grassland, so I was correct there. My one wish is that in sandbox mode, at the very least, you could just put down different biomes of grass. I would love if this space actually had like that, you know, like brownish, yellowish kind of grass that you get if your zoo's biome is grasslands. But no, because we are a taiga zoo, I believe. It's just going to be green. And I wish, at least in Sandbox, that I could just, you know, pop open terrain and have like a biome button here and just put down different biomes. I think it would be a cool way to just make Sandbox a bit more interesting and again, it's a sandbox, right? So it's like the rules can go out the window a little bit. Would have been nice. Anyway, that's my one like regret about this space, is that I can't get that look happening. Either way, I'm pretty sure we've met all their needs. We might actually need more water. I didn't think they'd need too much water, considering, I mean, it does say Nile Lechwe, so maybe I should have thought about that. We'll see how that plays out. But otherwise, it looks like we're okay. Species data. Group size of 3 to 50, up to 1 male, up to 49 females. I think we have enough space for them. If I go up to, let's say, 3 adults and 2 juveniles, this has got to be 540 meters squared. This has got to be enough space, right? Where's my... Yeah. Wow. in classic fashion, I've given them way too much space. It's okay though, because that means we can fit more than just the 3, right? So that works out fine. Either way, male bachelor group size is 3 to 10. Female bachelor group size is 3 to 50. The dominance is territorial bulls acquire harem of females. Okay, we've seen that before. Mating system is polygynous. Relation with humans is shy. They are shy, and guests can actually enter the habitat. Okay, I would have assumed no. Don't think that would change how I build stuff. I do quite like our little central viewing spot and stuff like that. I don't think I would change much, but it's good to know. I might have to make the glass one way though, because they are shy, so might need to make it one way. And I was thinking that when I put it down as well. Size, on average, males are 40.8 inches tall at the shoulder. Females are 32.8 inches tall at the shoulder. Life expectancy is 13 years across the board, and average weight for males is 231 pounds, and for females it is 165 pounds. Again, huge discrepancy. Age of sexual maturity is 2 years. Sterility is at death. Number of offspring per mating event is 1. Gestation of 8 months. Interbirth of 12. And reproduction in captivity is easy. So hopefully some adorable babies will be coming shortly. Social needs. Nile Lechwes, like most ungulates, live in herds, which can be composed of several group types. Groups of females and their offspring, male bachelor groups, or breeding harems, where a dominant male gathers multiple receptive females. Solitary dominant males tend to protect a territory against other males and pursue any female passing through in the hopes of mating with them. Reproduction. Most mating occurs between a dominant male and females grazing on his territory, though bachelor males may also occasionally manage to secure a mate. Generally, the territorial male will chase off any bachelor males or engage in short, violent fights with rivals if necessary. To initiate mating, the male will urinate on his neck and attempt to rub his beard on a receptive female's head or rump. Should she allow this, he will mount her to mate. Hold on, I'm trying to... The male will urinate on his neck. Having a hard time visualizing the angles required there. It's like because it sounds direct, you know. So that kind of like distracted me there for a second. Interesting. Don't think I've seen that anywhere in Zoopedia before. That sounds completely new to me. And I'm sure there are other animals that do that as well, but this is the first time I'm reading something like that in Zoopedia, I'm pretty sure. Obviously, like, urine is used for, like, mating purposes and territorial marking and stuff all the time, like scents and stuff like that. But this is the first time I'm seeing anything like this. Pretty interesting. Pregnancies last between 7 and 9 months, after which the female gives birth to a single calf. For the first week of its life, the calf will exclusively feed on milk and then begin eating young grasses. Weaning is complete by 5 to 6 months old, by which time the mother can already be pregnant again. Calves may be independent of their mothers as early as 6 months old and migrate to a different group or even herd at this point, though they reach sexual maturity later in life at around 2 years old. Males are, however, unlikely to mate at this age, growing stronger until they are able to guard territory of their own. Now again, this comes up, like, very often. I just find it so cool that, like, mating is basically age-gated based on, you know, just how rough and tumble you can be. Like, obviously, yes, but it's still interesting to see that sexual maturity is so decoupled from the ability to mate. Again, obviously, you know, that's the reality across countless species, but it's still interesting to see it written out like that. Just interesting. Fun fact number 1. Actually, before we get into the fun facts, a real quick note. It looks like we don't actually have any new items over here. I can't recall if the scarecrow feeder, is new with the Wetlands Pack DLC, but we have seen it with another animal, so nothing unique for our Nile Lechwe. Now, to the fun facts. Fun fact number 1. The horns of male Nile Lechwes can grow up to 34.8 inches long. Alright, pretty interesting. Fun fact number 2. Juvenile male Nile Lechwes look similar to females except for their developing horns. As they age, they develop their darker coat with the characteristic white patches. Alright, pretty interesting, like, it makes me think of, for example, the tapir, right, which looks very different when it's young versus when it's older. This is like a less, maybe, drastic version of that, where the male simply looks like the female, except for some minor differences, and then as they age, the coat color changes and the patches come in. That's so curious to me, though. Why? You know, why? Why? I love this kind of stuff. It gets me asking so many questions. Like, why not just stay in a similar, like, shade, I guess, to the females? Why get these white patches? Because if I'm not mistaken, with the tapir, with the Baird's tapir, the spots on the baby are to help it camouflage in, like, the brush and stuff, where it spends a lot of its time, and that's why the spots are no longer needed as they grow older. Still absolutely fascinating from a purely, like, evolutionary standpoint. Blows my mind. But what about this, right? Why here? I'm sure there's actually, I'm not sure there's a reason. Sometimes there's not a reason. That's just how evolution works. There's not always a reason. Sometimes things are just the way they are. Crazy. This world blows my mind. Fun fact number 3. In the wild, warble flies can parasitize Nile Lechwe's calves, leading to relatively high mortality as the larvae feed on tissue under the skin and can cause infections. Oh boy, I don't know about the fun in this fun fact, but that is definitely interesting. Most interesting of the 3 I've seen so far. Yikes. Warble flies. Terrifying. I've seen horse flies, I've seen black flies, and I've seen, like, fruit flies. Warble flies sound unpleasant. Don't know if I've ever seen one. Not in real life. I don't know about online either, like just an image of one. Fun fact number 4. As they live close to bodies of water and spend long periods grazing on aquatic plants, Nile Lechwes are a key prey species for crocodiles. Alright, that's 2 out of 5 facts about how Nile Lechwes can die. Okay, moving on. Fun fact number 5. Nile Lechwes are also known as, yes, Mrs. Gray's Lechwe, after Maria Emma Gray, the wife of John Edward Gray, a keeper at the British Museum, who also proposed to classify the species as Cobus Maria. How romantic. Interesting. Yeah, alright, you know, these fun facts are pretty solid. Nothing's going to touch the 5 out of 5 we had with this DLC pack, but these are pretty solid. They're up there. They're pretty good. Interspecies enrichment, they can share space with the African buffalo, the common ostrich, and the reticulated giraffe. That makes sense. They're a shoe-in for this group, but of course, we're not sharing spaces over here. Let's head on over to the market, and let's actually get these bad boys and girls in. We're going to get Umi, Apara. Apara's younger, and Ekwa and Zuwina. Hopefully I'm not butchering these too terribly. But yes, Apara, Zuina, and Ekua. I'm not sure. I'm not. Again, these are language groups that I'm not entirely familiar with, so I'm sure I'm way off even in my guesses, right? Sometimes when you're familiar with a language group, you can kind of figure out what words mean, because you're familiar with similar words in other languages, or you might be able to figure out how words are supposed to be said because you're familiar with other words that are similar in similar languages and things like that. But these are language groups I'm not familiar with. Moving on though, let's go ahead and hit play. Let's get these Nile Lechwe in and see how they feel about this new space. But you can see immediately as soon as I hit play, the frame rate just like tanks, and like it's bearable, but I'm sure it's starting to get a little challenging to like watch as well. It gets difficult to play with at times, but I'm also, I also want to make sure you guys have good viewing experiences and stuff like that. I want this to be calm water, please. Is that calm water? That doesn't look calm to me. But yeah, so I do think we need to get that new zoo going for the new DLC when it eventually, when it's eventually in my hands. We will hopefully come back and complete this. I got a variety of responses with regards to actually watching the completion of this or just doing it off camera. A good point was brought up that if I'm going to do it anyway, then why not just record it? And I guess the difference is just that my approach when I'm doing something for recording is a little different when I'm just doing it on my own in terms of like, timing and how I go about just doing things. So that was my only thinking there, but I've definitely looked at all the comments from that previous episode and I've registered them all, and I do still have to make a call and a decision about how I end up doing this. But I just wanted you to know that your thoughts and opinions have been heard and seen, and I'll probably do this over the course of adding the European pack or something like that, because this new DLC crept up on me much more quickly than I'd anticipated. Now granted, it's been a fair bit of time, but I thought I had longer before the next one. In fact, truth be told, if I'm completely honest with you, I didn't think we were going to get another DLC. I had no reason to think that other than, well, this game's been out for a couple years now. Jurassic World Evolution 2 has been out for a little while now, so maybe it's time for Planet Zoo 2. We might be getting Planet Coaster 2, but I was expecting Planet Zoo 2 to be next on the docket, not another DLC for Planet Zoo. Now again, I want to be very clear, I have no reason for this speculation. It's pure speculation. No one's told me anything. I don't want anyone to think that I know something I don't. And so when the DLC was announced, I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I'm happy for it. I'm glad. That's great. Good on Frontier to keep supporting Planet Zoo with all this new content. And not just paid content, but some pretty cool free updates as well. So that's cool, and I just was entirely unawares, but I'm excited to see more coming through. These paths are a lot wider. See, that's what happens. I end up putting down the wide paths, and then it completely throws off my sense of scale, and then my spaces start becoming larger and larger. But yeah, this path is unnecessarily wide over here. I will say, actually, on that note, as we're waiting for these guys to arrive, I did go to Toronto Zoo again recently. Some of you who've been following this channel and this this coverage on this channel for since the beginning must have probably heard me lament how long it's been since I've been to Toronto Zoo. And for her birthday, Miss Elite wanted to go to the zoo, and so we went. It's been a couple of weekends now, I suppose. It's been a few weekends. We spent 5 hours there. It was fantastic. And something I actually noticed, and I don't think this was there previously, at least not at this scale, because I don't remember it at all. This is a horrifying looking chimera kind of situation here. But something I noticed is that the zoo, Toronto Zoo, has a lot of cultural touch points, and I thought that was cool. I know for a fact, with almost certainty, with 90% certainty, the Mesoamerica area was redone relatively recently. Well, I say relatively recently. A couple of years ago now, I think it was redone, and it's got thematic architecture and thematic just play spaces and stuff. Beyond that as well, the Like there's a section with like they've got African like spirit masks and stuff. I think that's the term. Please correct me if I've got it horribly wrong. But they've got like masks and stuff on display and little like placards that explain what you're looking at and stuff. And I was like, well, hang on a second, this is really cool. I'm really happy to see a real world zoo kind of taking my approach. Now, I don't remember Toronto Zoo being that way when I went last time or the time before that. Granted, it's been many years ago. So, for me, it was a bit of a revelation. Maybe at the time I hadn't noticed, but that doesn't sound like me at all. But very cool. I thought I'd share. I took a lot of pictures. I think I took almost too many pictures to share. But if folks are interested in seeing some of them, I can always post them on Twitter. Again, link to that is in the description down below. That's probably where I'd share them. But yeah, it was the closest I got to a tiger as well. Anyway, sorry, I could talk about my zoo trip forever. I've been waiting to go for so very long. I was very excited to finally be able to go. I've been lamenting it for so very long, and it finally happened. And I just thought some of y'all might find it interesting that, yeah, Toronto Zoo also does all this like cultural stuff. Made me really happy to see, because I think it's such a great learning experience and opportunity. It's a great way to explore things that are otherwise unfamiliar. That's why it's my focus, right? I find it a very fun way to learn new things for myself and share with all of y'all. Whether I've known something previously or not, I find it just I love it. Right? It's my jam. Let's put it that way. But yeah, had a wonderful time at the zoo. Also very inspiring. The Mesoamerican section probably surprised me the most, because I've never seen such a themed space, I don't think. Like this whole waterfall you could walk behind. Felt very much. It felt very much like it would fit into an Elite Zoo franchise. Sorry, I'm gonna end that tangent now as we get out of this view. And what? The way the guy swims is so funny. He's like bobbing so hard up and down. Oh, now he's just standing. Okay, fair enough. Can I get a good view for the thumbnail here, buddy? Please and thank you. Yeah, that seems pretty good. Oh, look at that. There we go. Look my way. Nope. Come on. Yeah, I think we had something in there. Anyway, let's go ahead and make sure they actually like this space. Because, it'd be nice to have them be happy. Not enough soil. I had a feeling they would want more soil, and that actually makes me happy to see, because it'll introduce some of those, like, yellowish brown tones and stuff that I wanted. And they don't like the water lily, because it is actually not local to Africa. Interesting. I thought I had the African filter on. Now, they're not too upset about the vegetation or anything, so we can leave it be, but it's just good to know that they are not the biggest fans of that. Enrichment is good. I'm sure everything else is probably fine. Yes, let's go ahead and get some soil in there. Excellent. Works out for me. Actually matches what I was hoping for, like I said. Reduce the size of it. We don't need that much. Actually, let's go ahead and put it down over here, so it kind of feels like, oh, this is... space is walked in a lot, and that's why the grass doesn't really grow here all that much. Reduce the size of it. I'm gonna need a lot more soil. I need a lot more soil. All right. I need to. Wow. Okay, this is a bit of a surprise actually. Over here now, again, it's not 100% intensity, so maybe it feels like more than it actually needs to be, but. Oh, this is. What am I missing here? Maybe up top over here? Like, I'm sure there's a huge section of tall grass. There we go. That I can just get rid of. Yeah. Like, that makes it look like, sorry, this is more kind of lived in, and this is kind of lived in. Makes sense, maybe you go to the lake near the pond, the puddle. No, that's pretty big. I don't know what I would classify this as. The pond behind your house to, I don't know, wash stuff. So, you walk there a lot and things like that. I'm trying to, justify the color spread and stuff over here. All right, let's watch the animals in action. Are you? No. That is not an intended animation. That's just clipping. I was like, what's going on here? I want to see them interact with, like, the scarecrow and stuff. I don't think I've seen that yet. This looks very cute. Even though it's unintentional, it looked very cute. It looked like she was tucked in. But look at the difference, eh? Like, if I didn't know better, I would think the female was just a calf. I would assume that I was looking at a male and a couple of babies. Beautiful. Look at the way the light hits the fur right near the like the cheek now, the jaw. They did a really good job on the fur here. The layering and stuff continue to impress me. Just I'm playing this game for so long, and still every time a new animal is added, somehow they up the ante. Look at that. Oh. Breakneck speed there. Look at these horns too. I do wonder if they grow so perfectly in nature. Imagine there's a lot of room for variance and stuff like that. And I'm sure a lot of the time they get damaged in like fighting and stuff, but I wonder if they grow like this. Oh man, actually that reminds me. I had the opportunity to, while at the zoo, I had the opportunity to answer a couple questions about the Babirusa, which was wild to me. I should like shout Planet Zoo out for that. There was questions being asked, and I was like, I know the answers to these questions because of Planet Zoo. Oh, it was wild. It was wild to me. What a fun experience. I mean, okay, I should stop. You can tell I love the zoo, I'm sure. Gonna say I could spend a whole day there, but I did spend a whole weekend there. Alright, buddy. Give you some privacy. But yeah, just look at how different they are. They look like little kids by comparison. Yeah, so very different. Do we have a king penguin offspring. I'm looking for offspring for some of our new animals. I don't think I've had such luck. Doesn't look like it. Yeah, it doesn't look like it. I'm hoping that these guys get a kid, right? Did we already see theirs? Because it looks like they have... No. So majestic. I will never get over... I will never get over their look. Okay, no kids yet, though. Yeah, no kids yet. Fair enough. Alright. Just thought we'd give them a little peek. Where are we? More action down over here? Where'd you go? See them scratching against the tamarind tree. I wish they'd add more scratching post trees, so just to have a bit more variety. I can't imagine it's too difficult. I mean, I'm not to say anything's easy in this world, but like swap the model out and maybe make a couple of tweaks and add a few different versions. No, I don't know. I'm obviously not familiar with their work pipelines and stuff, but it'd be nice to have a bit more variety. Then again, maybe it's not real, right? Maybe that's not how it works. Maybe that's not how it works. Or just look, I mean, look at that. This one's nearly like just like struggling to keep her like nose in the air, and meanwhile Buddy back there is just like lounging, having the time of his life. Look at that. Look at that. Yet another majestic creature added to our DLC zoo here. But folks, I think this is probably what we're going to call this session. I don't know how likely we are to see offspring this session. Well, we're not, because I'm about to call it. But hopefully we get some next session. Again, even if they don't come next session, we of course will have our European DLC adding. Oh, I thought she was trying to get food from Buddy here, but no, I think she just ran past the scratching post tree, whatever. But yeah, if we don't get offspring between this session and the next session, then we of course have the when we're adding the European DLC animals, we'll be able to come back and check on these guys and make sure they have babies. It's funny, this has almost become a third zoo. You know, it was supposed to be a small side project kind of thing. I didn't expect so much post-launch support, I'll be honest with you. And all of a sudden now this is a sandbox zoo, like many folks were requesting. We've ended up with a full-on sandbox zoo at this point. Actually, you know what I didn't check? I just realized one thing I didn't check was Are they able to? Yes, they are. I assumed they'd be able to get in here, but I just realized I should check to make sure, because that's where they have their hard shelter and stuff. You know, if they weren't able to get there, we'd get a hard shelter warning, which we didn't, so I assumed we were safe, but good to make sure. Good to make sure. By the way, folks, with that all said and done, I think it's time to call it a session. I hope you had a good time. I certainly did. It's always good to come back and dive back in and explore more stuff. If you had a good time, again, you know what to do. Let me know down below. Leave a like, leave a comment. It makes a huge difference, as I was saying earlier. Just letting me know what I should keep doing on the channel, what I should pay attention to, focus on, slow down, speed up. Y'all know the drill by now. As always, a massive thanks goes out to all of the channel members and patrons who've been supporting the channel on a monthly basis. Y'all keep us alive and running smoothly. And of course, a big ol' thanks goes out to each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, cheers.